Hello and welcome to Conference Showcase. That's right, Conference Showcase. I've changed the name from Pickle TV to Conference Showcase on the input of several of my friends that, well, I thought a lot of what they thought. Now, if you like what do you think of the new name, I hope you like it. I'm your host, Gary Leland. Now, if you found our show on Facebook, YouTube, or any other video sharing site, please check out my website at conferenceshowcase.com. Of course, it's the place to find all the videos I record from all the conferences I will attend. Now, if you like this episode and the conferences, Conference Showcase in general, please tell your friends about conferenceshowcase.com. You may also want to think about subscribing if we really like it. Now, in this episode, I'm bringing you another session from the Dallas Fort Worth WordPress Meetup group. Now, if you're not familiar with this meetup group, you really should check them out. Their website is meetup.com/DFW WordPress. Now, in this episode, I'm bringing you a showdown between Rob Holmes and Derick Schaefer. Now, they both represent different sides in this session, which is titled WordPress.com or self-hosted WordPress blogs. What are the benefits of each? Now, let's start with Rob Holmes of IPCybercrime, and he's going to talk about WordPress hosted blogs.
So anyway, just to give you a little bit of background on myself, my handle on Twitter is Holmes PI, and that's my name and my profession. I'm a private investigator, and you can see where I got the handle from here, Holmes PI, like Magnum PI. So, but you can find me on there. And another thing I want to tell you guys is that I'm a small businessman. I'm not a developer. I'm a small businessman who needed a website and I needed a blog. So what did I do? Back in 2007, I had a company design a website for me, and doesn't look like any other private investigative site you've ever seen, because I told a website developer, Flash developer, I said, you know what, I want it to look like no other private investigator's website you've ever seen. So it was fun. I had this site for about 2-3 years, maybe 4 years, and back in 2007, I said, okay, I really want to start dealing with search engine optimization and possibly having some more dynamic content on my site. Right here, it was just a standalone website, like a pamphlet almost, and even though I liked the way it looked, it really wasn't very interactive. There wasn't really much that I could do as a non-web web developer on the back end, to make changes and things like that. So what did I do? I went to Barnes & Noble, and I went to the dummy section, and I said, well, actually the web developer section, and I said, okay, let me see what dummy books I have to choose from. And between all the different services out there, between Joomla, Drupal, WordPress, and all these, WordPress at the time was the only one with the dummies book, so WordPress won. So in a weekend, I read WordPress for Dummies, and I decided to, and basically what they do is they kind of give you two different options. Now, if a lot of you guys may not know that WordPress.com has a service that's completely free. You can have your name like homespi.wordpress.com and have that completely for free with plugins and themes and everything else. And it's very secure. And there is also a way for you to take the WordPress software from a website called wordpress.org. You can download the software and install it on your own hosted server and do it that way. So it's like two different kinds of things. It's two different ways of thinking. And the best way I can describe it, now, here's what I did. Okay, first I went on to WordPress.com, and you see here, you have tons of different themes. I think there are 222 themes you can choose from right now, and they're beautiful. They have new ones every week. I end up getting an email just about every week where they say, hey, we have this new one just for photographers, and this one for recipes, and things like that. And there are also premium themes, like they partner with Woo Themes, who's a popular theme company. You could purchase themes for WordPress.org. Now for, say, $50 or $90, you can have a lifetime license to a paid theme. It's more of a premium service. And you also have all these different extras. So you're not limited to homespi.wordpress.com. You can actually, for, $13 a year, add a domain, $13 a year, you can have your domain mapped to that, so it can just be, like my personal blog is homespi.com, and it's directly mapped to this WordPress.com site. So it's hosted by WordPress, and I have my own domain. Okay, and there's also video press for 60 bucks a year. You can basically create your own YouTube server, upload your own video and things like that. I don't use that, but you can see here there's space upgrades. You can actually use it to store all of your images and video and audio if you're a podcaster and things like that. So again, it's pretty rich with all the different things that you can do just within this. And look at this. Now, you thought there weren't that many plugins, but there actually are. This is pretty much, there's a lot of functionality within it, but I wanted to give you guys an idea of the actual plugins that you would use and download into a WordPress.org self-hosted site. And these are the ones right here, functionality-wise. You can have a Facebook like box. You can also have a Flickr box on the side, and these are all like sidebar, images. Or sections, like you can have About Me. Now, they just added that this week, where if you add your About Me handle. Anybody here have an AboutMe.com, an About.me page? It's kind of becoming the new business card. And if you don't have an About.me account and page, you should get it. But yeah, WordPress just inserted that this week. So now when you go to holmespi.com, you'll see basically a little version of my About Me page and my description and everything else too. So you can see, and also, anybody here have WordPress.org and you've installed Jetpack? Okay, all the stuff that Jetpack has in it is already built into WordPress.com. So basically what Jetpack was the people who had .com, the WordPress.org developers, the self-hosted developers wanted to basically kind of compete with some of the features that were in .com. So they created Jetpack, and it added some of those functionalities like the built-in subscriptions and a whole bunch of different things. The built-in CSS, you can actually do custom CSS within it now in a certain menu, a whole bunch of different features. But it's nice because, again, it's something you don't have to worry about. Now, this is an industry blog that I write. It's actually pretty popular. I'm in the business of catching people who sell knockoffs. So my website is called Knockoff Report. So I work for brand owners. When people knock off their products, I catch them and bring them to justice. So this is my industry blog here. Then I have a personal blog. It's holmespi.com, but I call it Living by Accident because it's kind of my Forrest Gump philosophy in life. As long as you have faith and move forward, things seem to work out. But anyway, but that's my personal blog. So this is holmespi.com. So I have two blogs hosted on WordPress.com. And all I pay is $13 a year to have the domain mapped to there. And I think on Knockoff Report, I actually have, I pay maybe the 30 bucks a year for extra space. And actually, come to think of it, there's also another fee. It's like 20 bucks a year or something like that for no ads. So, but again, it costs a little bit. But see, the nice thing is, and also just a little disclosure here, I drive a Prius, okay, Toyota Prius. And the beautiful thing about it is, you don't even have to take your keys out of your pocket. I mean, you don't. I mean, these keys, they don't leave my pocket until I take my shorts off. I won't do that here. But I walk up to my car, it unlocks, I get in, I press the power button, and I drive away. And I don't know how, I mean, I haven't changed oil since high school, But anyway, it's kind of like when you think about it, if you are a car owner and you want something that just works every time and you really don't have to do anything except press the start button, WordPress.com is basically the Prius or the Toyota of blogging. Really nothing else to do except add the content and just make it look the way you want. Functionality and everything and security is all hosted by WordPress. Now, you saw back there my hero there, Magnum PI. He drove a Ferrari, so he had a whole different philosophy on, what he liked to drive. Well, here's a Ferrari. It's not the same one he drove in the '80s, but this is much nicer. But again, you're driving a Ferrari, you're going to have, $1,000 oil changes and a lot of things that have to happen on a regular basis. It's a very finely tuned machine, but again, it goes over 200 miles an hour. So you see, with more functionality, with more freedom and things like that, there's also a little bit more work and more maintenance. And that's why I use WordPress.org and the self-hosted WordPress for my company website. Because, you know, it's almost like, when a lot of people mention to me, they'll say, well, what's the difference, or which one would you prefer? I say, look, do you want a website or a blog? Because if you want a blog, in most cases, WordPress.com is perfect. Because again, it's just set it and forget it, like the old, you know, chicken roaster ad, you know? But see, with this, with my website, I want to have Google Maps and a directory where people can look up my peers and other investigators in other cities, and all these plugins that can do a million different things. Now, I showed you the 5 or 10 plugins that come inside WordPress.com. Well, you're limited to those because they have to make sure everything's 100% secure, and they probably have a whole department just taking care of the security on that one plugin. But in this case, since you're hosting your own environment, you can have pretty much any plugin you want, but you're on your own or your hosting company, you know, to give you some help. Now, Holmes and the case of the ISP raid. Now this is where it gets real interesting. Okay, now prior to this raid, I hosted my self-hosted site on GoDaddy.com, and it's probably the most popular one out there. And it's, it's about $10 a month. And very interestingly, okay, now again, I told you what I do for a living. Well, I was in charge of seizing the information on one of the largest websites in the world. Well, one of the top maybe a few hundred websites in the world, but a massive website. Turned out it was like 42 servers with an average of 1.5 terabytes hard drives in each one. So it was massive. But anyway, it was the largest customer at this ISP that we went to. And here's another cool thing, is that this is a case that the case itself is public, but some of the facts I'm going to tell you are still under seal. That's why I'm not going to tell you the name of the case or anything, because I've worked a few like this. But you're also the first people in the world, besides me, to see any of these snapshots. Like, I haven't even turned, because the case has been on hold. You know, what happens is, once you seize all the information, it's going to take 2 or 3 years for us to be allowed to look at the data. So, so all of this stuff has just been sitting in my office, or in my secure storage. But these are some snapshots of some video that we took. And again, I'm going to show you, at the end of this, I'm going to kind of show you why I changed from GoDaddy to a more secure shared hosting service. Okay, now, when you hear about a hosting company, you look and you see, wow, man, it's like Fort Knox. It's gorgeous, man. They have guys in construction helmets and safety glasses walking around. I mean, that's when you go on the website, that's what you see, you know? And they really do have all those people, but that's in the nice building. You know, the way an ISP works, and I learned this, okay? And again, we were here, I went in here into this place with 4 marshals. Oh, here's another thing, you know, you look at this, you see this nice little blueprint and all these beautiful servers. It's like the gun racks in the Matrix. You know what I mean? It's that beautiful, you know? Okay, but this is the building that we actually did the seizure at. You see, it doesn't look like the building they put on their website, right? This is their beautiful building. Right? This is where they have all the good stuff, right? Well, even though this is their biggest customer, their biggest customer was also their first decent-sized customer. So their 42 servers were built from probably 1 server all the way to these 42, so they just never moved. They've always been in the old building. Okay? So again, I had a very unique experience spending 5 days extracting data from 42 servers, over 100 hard drives. There's 30.2 terabytes of data that we extracted, which is the forensic guy is one of the top forensic guys that I used out of Silicon Valley, and he said that was his largest data acquisition ever. So you can imagine, it took us about a week to extract all the data, 4 guys working around the clock. So you see this, we walk up to this one here. Oh, and another thing is, you know, you always have to be confident. You know, I have an attorney who flew in from DC. The client in London is on a telephone, you know, hanging on, with her fingernails. And I have 4 marshals with me. And I mean, not only that, but I had other guys that I hired to bring in with me. It's like a $250,000 a week for the client. And if I brought them to the wrong building, you know, that's my whole life. So anyway, I take them here and I'm thinking, oh crap, it doesn't look like it looked like in the picture. But again, I used a lot of social engineering, and I had it down to 42 servers, and it was give or take 1 or 2 servers off. exactly how many servers just because of all the investigating I had done. And I knew it was this building, not all the others. And I'm thinking like 42 servers, their biggest customer, and it's in a little crappy building. So we walk in, right? And here's the marshals letting me in here, because the marshals always go in first. I don't walk in with guns or anything. The marshals walk in. They tell them, look, hey, this is a situation. This is how it always works in a civil seizure. I'm only there to conduct the seizure. The actual security side is always done by law enforcement. So they walk in, secure the place, and they tell everybody, okay, now this guy's going to come in and basically, you know, do this for a few days. So now the interesting thing was this entire building is 10,000 square foot, not massive, probably the size of maybe 3 of this room here, but 10,000 square foot. It was in an industrial park, like a trucker, you know, like you see like trucks in vegetable distribution, you know, lots and things like that. It was like that. It was like an industrial park, you know, just a mile away from that really nice facility. This was their first one, a nondescript, and this was the only guy on staff. Igor, and Igor is sitting there eating ramen. And I'm thinking like right away, I walk into this place, again, my client was easily writing a check for $250,000 and I'm like, I'm walking into this, I see this crappy building and Igor eating ramen. And I'm like, this is no way, this is one of the, you know, top, say 300 websites in the world in this building, right? Well, thank God I was right. But anyway, this guy worked with us, because remember, we weren't rating him. You know, we were rating the data on one of his, basically like one of his tenants, he would kind of say. So he was consider him as being like the landlord or the proxy of the landlord. He was very cooperative with us the whole week. But this is some footage, and these are images that I took from the initial walkthrough of our seizure. And again, you guys literally are the first people in the world to see this footage outside of me. My client hasn't even seen it yet, because they don't need the information. It's just sitting on my sitting in my server. But you can see, this is what I did, and I'm walking through with the camera much like this, walking through doing an initial walkthrough. And part of a seizure is, you know, you walk in, then when you clean up at the end, you take the same video so you can show that you didn't mess the place up. But anyway, this was the first row. This is what the computers look like. Now, you also picture when you pay GoDaddy, or you know, a company like that. Again, it wasn't GoDaddy, but you pay a company like that, you expect it to be on a nice new computer. Now, the oldest computers, like I have computers that I threw away this week that were nicer than these computers. These are like those e-machines that you get at Fry's for like $200, right? And that's just an entire server farm full of these. And you can see here, I mean, just, you know, now imagine if someone has a problem on your particular server, right? You're going there and you got Igor putting down his ramen. You know, going back there, trying to figure out where it is. Okay, now, you know how it is. I mean, you have one computer. I mean, like, I run a network in my office of, like, 5 computers, you know? And you know how hard it is. You're like, okay, where's the problem? Where's the plug? And all this. Imagine having, like, 1,000 of these and one guy eating ramen. So, this is what you're looking at here, right? You know, oh, you look at this, look, I mean, it's not nice and neat. I mean, this is just servers just, oh, look, we need more space. Boom, 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 stick it in there, jam it in there. Can we reach the plugs? But again, this isn't representative of the entire company, right? And again, I can't tell you who the company is, but it's a decent sized, you know, very reputable hosting company. But again, this is their old building, because every place starts out and has the ghetto building where they just happen to have all the cheap hosting and everything, right? All right, now, the reason I bring this up, and this isn't just to shamelessly plug the next speaker, but I got to tell you something, okay? No, seriously. I've known Derick now for probably about 4 or 5 years, but the funny thing is, I actually met him at a small business consultation, right? At you know how they do like SCORE with the Small Business Administration. They have like the free consultations and stuff, and he was volunteering for as a marketing expert. But that's how I met him, and he and I were already members of this group. But anyway, that's how I actually met him, and through that, I started getting to know a lot of these marketing guys. But what I want to tell you, since I've known him throughout these years and known he was a hosting expert, I was like scared to death. After I saw this place, I'm thinking like, GoDaddy can't be much better, you know? So, because it was a big, you know, like I said, a very reputable company. So, what happened was, Derick, I don't know, was it about last year or so when you put this company up?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'll give the.
Yeah, okay. But you know, what happened was he's always been a hosting expert, but he's always done this, you know, work for these huge companies and all this kind of stuff, and he's never really, you know, had a service that I could afford, right? So then, no, you know what I mean. So then he comes out with something that actually competes with these, but he does hands-on, you know, he's got hands-on guys, and it's WordPress specific. So anyway, I wanted to show you that raid, A, because it was a fun raid, and then B, because it scared the daylights out of me. I don't want to be one of the cheap customers at a big hosting facility like that. And here's a little thing too, because I do think with the way shared hosting is going, you have to be real nervous. Do you remember, like, what was this, September 11th? So September 10th, this year. Yeah, you remember the big GoDaddy hack? GoDaddy was down, all this stuff, you know. I get calls from the press, you know, I'm kind of in the press rounds, you know, I get calls here and there. New York Post calls me up and they said, hey, with the GoDaddy hack, what do you think's going on? And I said, well, first of all, I'm a detective, and detectives never guess or assume. So I said, well, I don't know if they were hacked, but here's the problem, and I would say this is a problem that needs to be addressed in the hosting community. And I was talking about the overpopulation of shared hosting servers. Now look, if you're paying $10 a month, I'm paying $10 a month, and you have 100,000 other people paying $10 a month on just one of those little computers. You know, because you could literally, now imagine if GoDaddy has an outage, or a company like this has an outage, one computer goes out and 100,000 customers. Small businesses, because small businesses are really the people that, you know, pay the $10 a month. You know, but that was a thing, and I actually looked at that because of my experience at this server farm. I said, you know what? I mean, somebody could have just unplugged 10 computers and run out the back door, you know, and taken out 1 million small businesses.
And grab the box of ramen.
Huh?
And grab the box of ramen.
Oh, exactly. Of course. Yeah. So, but anyway, that's the whole thing. I kind of wanted to leave it with Derick with that, with just telling you guys about like the dangers of shared hosting and why with my company site, you know, I went with another company and it turned out to be his. So that's it for me. Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed Rob's session. Now let's go to Derick Schaefer, who's with Copyblogger Media. Now Derick's going to talk about self-hosted WordPress blogs and a lot more. Let's check it out.
It's good to be back here. It has been 2 years. You're right. It's the fall session. We talked about hosting. So I'm going to give an update on that presentation and talk about a bunch of stuff that's different, but we're specifically going to do it with the slant of looking at what Rob talked about, .com hosting for WordPress and .org, and try to bring you to some things that will help you make some decisions in that space. And a lot has changed in 2 years. A lot has changed. Anyway, so Derick Schaefer, I now work for Copyblogger Media, and I'll tell about that story and how that came about and what Brian Clark and Brian Gardner and Sean Jackson and I decided to go off and do to address a need we saw in the market space. And I believe I put Twitter handle up there. Me, nothing exciting on mine. The web synthesis one is actually pretty good in terms of a lot of WordPress type articles and news that we put out, or working with security and some of our other partners will get out. So that's a decent one to follow me. You'll see my antics. It's nothing special. Might be funny some days not. Anyway, okay, so I want to talk about, in this agenda, I'm going to talk about .com versus self-hosted. And in the self-hosted WordPress space, we're going to talk about requirements, but instead of just technology requirements, I'm also going to talk about what I think the requirements of a responsible site owner are about. Also going to talk about, I'm going to do, and if those of you who came 2 years ago, this will be kind of a repeat where I'm just going to overview the different types of hosting that are out there so we've got a clear definition of what that is. And then I'm going to force it back to what's right for you. Give a little story about why we got into the business that we got into, and then talk about a few hosting facts, etc. So it's not up there right now, but I will put this PDF up there on my way out of here so that you can download this and feel free to use it, share it with your friends, etc. Okay, a little bit about Copyblogger. A lot of brand confusion there as we've come together over the past 2 to 3 years now. But Copyblogger Media now represents, and has for the past 2 years, StudioPress, which is the premium theme company. And this just goes to show you that Rob is not shamelessly plugging us, because on that premium themes for WordPress.com, we actually offer 7 themes. But he also showed you that Woo Themes is up there, one of our competitors. Oh, thank you. No, but anyway, so StudioPress themes, it's the Genesis framework and the child themes that go on top of that. Who uses the StudioPress theme or is familiar with them? Good. Good.
That's what my company site's on, by the way.
It is. We appreciate that. And next meetup, Tony, we are actually giving away, we held it for this last one, we're going to give away the Pro Pack, which is like a $370 value of Genesis, all the child themes and support. So come here, give a card. And I told Tony, we don't want your cards, we don't want your email addresses, we just want to give it away so we can have a little fun and do something good for the group. We also have Scribe SEO, which is an SEO plugin and analyzer. There's a standalone version and one that works with WordPress. A landing page product called Premise that is made for specifically creating inside of WordPress landing pages that convert and with all the trickery that you see the pros use, but something that you can use and implement. And then our synthesis hosting division, which is where I spend my time. Okay, in addition to those products, one thing that is really interesting about Copyblogger property, especially copyblogger.com, is the amount of free information that's given away there. If you don't subscribe to the RSS feed or hook up to the subscribe to the mail feed for copyblogger.com, do. It's just amazing the guidance and advice that is given away for just free with no expectations. And Brian's done it for 6 years now, and to this day I still read every one of them. They're absolutely fabulous. Okay, so let's talk about WordPress.com and then self-hosted WordPress. We're going to talk about the pros and cons. There are a lot of pros to using WordPress.com, and I by no means am going to bash it at all, even though I spend my time in the self-hosted space because it is a well-done platform. In fact, I'm going to pump it up so much that I'm going to force you to a decision point of really how do you justify taking on all of the requirements for self-hosting, because it is a responsibility to self-host your site. Okay? First of all, it is 100% managed. WordPress, plugins, the premium themes, you literally get to stick to content, which is what you do. So Rob, with your blog, you blog, right?
Yes, sir.
You don't fiddle around with plugins, or Jetpack doesn't work with this or that because it's all built in for you, correct?
Correct.
Right? And you pay your bill once a year,
Yep.
and you're done.
Yep.
99.9% focusing on the business, a little percent making sure his credit card payment goes through and he's done. That is not a bad place to be. The staff behind it, unbelievably. If you've ever had a chance to see Barry Abramson speak, or any of the other people who work on that team that manage that infrastructure, it is not servers crammed into what you saw in that. These guys they're unbelievable, and their infrastructure, I think they have over 5 million databases in their infrastructure, and they're just methodical on how they run it, not only from an operational perspective, but also security. So it is not, even though they do offer free sites, you're not in this kind of hodgepodge whatever. It is really, really well done. It's easy to get your site up and running. You can do it in an afternoon. The add-ons that they have to extend your site really are significant, and from the premium themes that they offer and some of the different add-ons and plugins, etc. There's a lot that you can do there. Theme customizations, they allow for CSS customization. I mean, they've come a long way in that offering. Let's talk about the cons. First of all, there are plugin limits. You know what the favorite thing about the WordPress community in last year's survey was? The favorite thing about WordPress was? Plugins. You know what the most hated thing about WordPress was? Plugins. Trust me, I see it every day. One plugin can just tear a site apart. Another one can make the difference between you making money or not. So we'll talk about how you kind of justify going down that path. Second, no commercial advertising. It's really hard to put up a commercial site. Commercial sites, you need people to convert and do something. You need them to fill out a form to take their information. You need them to buy something. You need to put in various parts and pieces. Or advertising, if you're doing, whether it be pay-per-click advertising or other kinds of impression-based ads. You're not going to be able to pull that off on .com, so that is a limitation. Here's one. Well, there's some support limitations. You're going to be on WordPress forum support, right, which there's really a lot of good people who hang out there. Andrea Rennick, has anybody ever seen her, Ron Rennick, out there on the forums? They're actually Copyblogger employees. Ron was the guy who collapsed MU into WordPress 3.0 multi-site. It was a contribution to core that was significant, and his wife Andrea, she's out there constantly. So it's not that you're just a bunch of people sharing opinions and you're going to get hacked up advice. There's some pretty solid advice out there, but it is forum-based support, and it's not going to be specific to you. But let's talk about the most significant one to me is you have got, hundreds of thousands of blogs out there, free blogs, all kinds of foreign language blogs. We saw what happened over the last 2 weeks with one piece of content that went out in the form of a movie about the Middle East, right? Wars broke out, literally. You have DDoS attacks. There are all kinds of things that hit .com, and it is something to think about if you've got to have your site up. They do a phenomenal job with it, but you have no idea what some of those, they don't, what some of those sites are about. And it has been the source of many a DDoS. So that's one thing that I do want you to keep in mind. Okay, so let's talk about self-hosted. The pros, 100% ownership and management of your site. You've got control. Nobody can tell you when they're upgrading, what they're upgrading to, what programs you have to be a part of, or what you have to pay to do what you're going to do. It's your call. Flexibility in your design. If you think that the right thing to do is to lead your people down the page and funnel them off to the right-hand side where you convert them because that's what works, it's your call. You don't have to take anything that they give you, which that is important when you get into commercial blogging. You've got freedom of choosing whatever hosting provider. So if you're audience, we host a lot of sites whose audiences are in Asia, like in Australia. And they make choices specific to get their content to their audience the way that they want to, including supported hours that work for them. And then obviously your core and plugin upgrades you can do at your own time and your own schedule. Here comes the cons. Management is your responsibility. Everything, core, plugins, themes, hosting, data, backup. Security is your responsibility, right? Your hosting provider, in most cases, is not going to do that for you. And there's an exception, and I'll talk about that. Performance, tuning. If you've got a big, big day, right, and you get this huge spike and somebody downloads that podcast that you made 1,000,000 times, and there's bandwidth overages associated with your hosting plan, I mean, it's not uncommon for people to get a bill. Kind of like when a kid gets a hold of their iPhone and goes nuts on the App Store and they get these $1,000 bills. I've seen it happen, where just a $1,000 bill comes in for bandwidth usage, and that's on you. So you really are, I mean, you're out there, you're out there and you're the one who's responsible for it. So I do want you to think about that. Okay, so this is, and I started to write this and I was like, I'm just gonna put this up as a quote, right? Because I'm just gonna be responsible for saying this. In my opinion, you could probably do 95% of what you want to do on .com. And if you want to do more than that and you can justify it, there's going to be a monetary reward to it, either to your brand, customer service, your reputation in the industry, or you actually cashing checks, PayPal payments, credit card, etc. because of this site that you can justify to do something more than commodity hosting. So I'm just going to put it out there. Either .com or go to somebody who's a premium host that focuses on WordPress. There's 4 of them in the industry. There's more that are out there, but there's 4 that are notable, and I'll go ahead and name them out. One is a company down in San Antonio that's called ZippyKid. If you ever get a chance to meet Sid, the CEO of the company, real down-to-earth guy, been in the WordPress community forever, and they're a stand-up company. WP Engine, based out of Austin. They've got some backing from a variety of players, including some people from WordPress.com or Automatic. Once again, a little more on the high scale in terms of the clients that they service, so not for your smaller sites. But great offering, competent people, and they've been at this for a number of years. Pagely, which is based out of Arizona. Josh Strebel, anybody who's ever met him or followed him on Twitter, he's been in the WordPress community forever. And they've got, once again, a little different kind of offering, but it's WordPress only, support, etc. And then ourselves, which we offer Synthesis Web Hosting, which is just WordPress hosting, focused in kind of our way. And so I'll talk a little bit about why we did that and how we did it. But that's what I would make the argument. So either go .com, or if you're going to step up and do it right, because I'll tell you there's a lot of things you have to worry about. Let's talk about WordPress hosting requirements. Okay, I had this slide from the last time I came and presented, and we really focused on the fact that back then it wasn't even these numbers. The numbers were way off. But now you've got to have 5.2.4 of PHP and MySQL 5.0 to make WordPress run. You can get that at any time you want when the updates happen at wordpress.org about requirements, okay? Technically, that's all you really need, and you need a stack. And a stack is typically Linux or Windows, Apache for a web server, running mod PHP and having a SQL server, right? MySQL as the database server, and you're off to the races, okay? But the stacks have gotten a lot more complicated for good reasons, and there's a lot more combinations that you see out there. I'm not gonna go into depth on these, but I just thought I'd throw them up on the page. You've got your typical LAMP stack, Linux, Apache, MySQL, and PHP. Your typical WAMP stack, which is Windows, Apache, MySQL, and PHP. Then people get fancy and they'll drop what's called a reverse proxy in front of that stack. 2 popular choices are Nginx, which is a Russian-based web server. We actually use it exclusively at Synthesis, but it is literally a highly undocumented Russian-built server that Automatic's actually putting money into it. They've put money into that open source project, and this thing is getting, it's some of the best software I've ever used in my life, and I've been in the software business for 25 years. But you got to be patient with it. You're either committed or you're not. Varnish is another one that people will use as a reverse proxy. There are some light web servers. Lightspeed's one, they refer to it as Lighty. You use that with MySQL and PHP. Or if you go to what's called a pure Nginx stack, you actually have this web server, which is a really dumb but efficient web server, Nginx. And what it can't handle, it throws to another server. So they actually now make a PHP server. And it's called PHP FPM, or a fast CGI gateway. And it's a really efficient way to run these. And there's some great things that can happen, but this is not for the faint at heart. You gotta be deep into a bash shell to get this stuff up and working. Or go to one of those hosts that's what they do. And each of, with the exception of Paisley, who uses Lighty, the rest of them use some variant of Nginx and these technologies. Extras. You've got caching, Memcache, and APC, and CDNs, and Cloudflare, and there's all kinds of stuff to consider, right? And there's some great technology out there. So, and what's interesting about the 4 companies that host these, all 4 of us have a different configuration and a different stack. And they all work really well, right? We like ours the best, but that's, I mean, it just goes to show you there's more than one way to skin this cat. Okay, let's talk about something more important though. Technology is technology and you'll find your way with it. I always tell people when it comes down to technology, we can solve those problems. That's not the issue. Let's talk about site owner responsibilities. First of all, you literally are responsible for your theme. You might hire a developer to go develop that for you, but what have they developed? Have they developed a theme from scratch? Have they done something a little more responsible, like taking the 2011, 2012 theme and creating a child theme off of that, knowing that there's support and community around that? Have they done things such as done a bunch of hokey includes a PHP code from other places into making some theme kind of work and giving it to you? We see it at studiopress.com all the time. You would not believe the number of sites that come up on a weekly basis that are literally just doing includes and using the images on our site. I mean, it is almost like a denial of service attack that comes in when some of these big sites go up. And we'll see the traffic just surging in, right? And of course we block them and then their themes just fall apart. But they literally have done content scraping and image scraping, but they don't even take the image. They just go ahead and link to it remotely. Oh, we see it all the time. You just watch the monitors go up and it's like, oh wow. So this is kind of fun and interesting, and you just put a and that's one thing that Nginx is really good about, is blocking that. It just takes down the chain and keeps it moving. Second thing is, so if you're going to go down the theme framework, there's some great theme frameworks out there. Woo is one. StudioPress has a good one. iThemes is out there. Photocratty. I mean, there's some really good ones, and they provide support and they evolve the platform. So when something big comes down the line, like the Tim Thumb debacle, if you're on a framework, they're going to take care of it, and they're going to alert you. You press a button and update. If you rolled your own, roll up your sleeves. You need to go figure that one out and figure out why that is. Thesis is another good one. If you have support, you can go to them, ask questions. When new things come out, such as mobile and responsive themes, you've got all of that. Yeah.
Tim Thumb debacle, you want to define that?
Yeah, so did anybody get stung by Tim Thumb? So Tim Thumb is this little library that is made to basically take an image. So let's say you've got a 1,000 by 1,000 image, pixels, and you want to, on the fly, make it be a thumbnail of 50 by 50. It'll do that on the fly, and it was really crafty, and designers love to use it. So there was a version up to, and I'll get the version wrong if I name it, but let's just call it like 9.5, but that's the way that it worked. Well, in 9.6, and I'll tweet back out what the actual versions are, because we wrote a post on this. Basically, they decided to allow you to remotely resize. So you could take a Pinterest image or a Flickr image and do it remotely. But the way that they did it literally left a security hole in the code that you could drive a truck through. And it was 2 WordCamps, San Francisco's ago. So it was not this year's, but the one before it, that it got announced. It was a 0-day attack, and literally the hackers went after it like you wouldn't believe. Millions of sites were infiltrated. It allowed them to basically walk right into your site, drop all of these files and backdoors and everything that they wanted to, and take control of your site. And so then you had this whole debacle of, well, your Tim Thumb's out of date. And I'll give a plug to Chris Pearson, who developed Thesis. He never went to that next version of Tim Thumb because he never used it for remote resizing, right? But he's had to just take all this abuse of people saying, oh, your Tim Thumb's out of date. And he's like, yeah, it's out of date. I don't want to do remote resizing of images. So it's almost like having a PC that's not connected to the network. You can sit there and say, ooh, that's an old PC, but I can guarantee it's not getting a virus from the internet. And that's the approach that he took. So there was all this confusion that happened. But yeah, Tim Thumb was a big, big disaster in the industry, and it's still out there. We migrate sites on a weekly basis that we see, wow, there's that Tim Thumb. And let me just show you how we can execute some code on your site We got to get it updated. And then they're like, oh, my theme's going to break. I was like, hey, I can break it for you, or a hacker will do it. Your call, because they're coming, and they do. Okay, you literally need to have a host or a webmaster to manage that stack. PHP needs updating, MySQL needs updating, there's plugs, there's patches, there's all kinds of security lockdowns. Even a piece of software like Nginx has certain patches that come out that need to be tended to. So your host is either going to do it for you, unless they're eating ramen, or you need to have somebody on staff that'll do that for you, somebody who's a contractor that'll help you with that. Backup solution. How many people back up their site remotely? I want to see more hands than that. You need to. You need, seriously, go home this weekend, go into your FTP client, drag all your files off onto your desktop, go into PHP-MyAdmin, back up your database, burn it to a CD, put it in an envelope, and stick it under your mattress. Seriously. You would not believe the number of people that get into trouble and they have no place to come back to. It's okay to be off by 6 months. At least you've got a starting point, right? Good backup plugins that are out there, BackWP Up. There's a company called Code Vault that they'll, for free, back up 2 gig. They've got another plan that they'll back it up for free until you need it, and then it's 25 bucks to get to it. You got Backup Buddy, which works pretty well. There's all kinds of good things. Backing up your SQL database to your local install does you no good. See that all the time. People have 20 gig of backups for 2 years of their SQL files. Well, what does that do? When the server goes down, all that goes with it. Get it out to Dropbox, get it out to S3, back your stuff up, right? Or have a host that does that for you. Security solutions, malware monitoring, proactive configurations, professionals that can de-hack a site. Who's had a site that's been hacked? Anybody? You have? What'd they do to it? Did you hear that sigh? Did somebody tweet? Wow.
Hard to explain without swearing.
Yeah.
But, bunch of Java bugs pointing out to various other sites.
Yeah.
Essentially became the largest redirect for YouPorn.
Nice.
It was a mess.
It is a mess. Do you know why they hack sites? No. There's one reason. They're trying to direct traffic to somewhere else.
Hijack the traffic.
Hijack the traffic, SEO juice. You know how many searches for Viagra there are in a month? 40 million. Now Google's going to shut you down within 2 days, but if you can get 2 days worth of traffic to some, mycanadianpharmacy.com, right? They don't even sell the product. They're just going to take your credit card number and then use it to rip off a bunch of other stuff and shut it down, right? If they can get 2 days worth of that traffic before Google catches them, it's money. The numbers are there. The last thing, who knows what a distributed denial of service attack is, right? It's when you need 2 million computers to wake up on your behalf and go hit somebody with something they can't process from all angles. They're called botnets. They put sleepers on your computer. We see them in websites all the time. Governments use them for attacks. Massive hacking groups use them for attacks. It's ugly. So you literally could be a pawn of the cyber wars and you don't even know it. They put a backdoor and put it to sleep, right? And there it goes. Now when they need it, when you turn on the news, it said MasterCard was taken down again. It might have been your site that participated in it. You've got no idea, right? A lot of responsibility there. Okay, I have got, by the way, a post on web synthesis. I made a short link to it. Once again, you can download the present to get it. But it basically is, Jared Morse wrote it, it's the cost of ownership of WordPress. How much does WordPress cost? It's free, right? This talks about the true cost of ownership, right? If you've got a business, you need to calculate this in. Let's keep moving here. Okay, let's talk security. So malware injections. Who knows what a malware injection is? They throw a funny string at your computer to see if it'll take it. So they'll use something that a computer would understand. Like in the database world, where you say something like 1 equals 1, well, to a computer, that means yes, right? So a poorly written piece of software where you put in the password thing a select string that has 1 equals 1 where it returns back a true, the function takes it and all of a sudden you're in. You just trick the system. WordPress is a lot better than that. It's really, really well done software. Plugins? Across the board. Hosting scenarios? Across the board. But they'll come after you. We shut down, I don't know, a couple 100,000 injection attempts a day at Synthesis, and it's amazing to watch them go after stuff. What's even worse, and it's a bigger problem today, are brute force login attempts. We are literally seeing 300,000 brute force login attempts across our sites. Admin passwords right after WP login, put WordPress in a different directory, it doesn't matter, they'll find it. Copyblogger.com alone, 260 an hour. And they're pretty decent guesses at passwords. If you were to use a password that just, Brian Clark 01, that kind of stuff, that's not our passwords. So you can defend yourself against that with some plugins that they have out there like limit login attempts. YubiKeys, I've got one on my keychain, I can show it to you afterwards. It's a little key that you plug into your USB, 25 bucks, put your finger on it, will allow you to log in. That's how we log into the back end of Web Synthesis. Gotta have a physical key. Lose their key, don't call me because I'll yell at you. No, it's easy, they fit on the keychains, they're as tough as nails. Denial of service attacks, hot linking. That was the word I was looking for earlier. StudioPress, we see it all day long, they hot link to your images. It's not an intentional denial of service, it's just stupidity is what it is, but you gotta pay the price on it. Obnoxious bots. If you ever go look in your logs, you'll see these little crawls to a URL in your site, every one of your URLs, and it'll say reply to com.
Yeah.
That's how WordPress indexes where the comments sit on the page, and these bots get confused and they think they're all separate pages. So you'll see a site just get attacked with all these, Beidou spiders and all these different search engine spiders crawling all these reply2.com things, and it'll kill your site. You get the right tweet. Brian Gardner's, with StudioPress, when he first became part of Copyblogger with Brian Clark, the right tweet was about every week. Brian Clark would tweet out from Copyblogger with 100,000 followers, hey, check out this on StudioPress. Boom, down with the server. $900 a month dedicated server. Boom, down it goes, right? We don't have that problem anymore, but it was a true problem. Intentional sin floods, denial of service attacks. Think about what is a FireWire drive? What's the speed it connects to your computer at?
400
megabits.
400 megabits or 800 megabits per second, right? Connected via wire, nobody else there. Now let's take from me to Washington, D.C. and deliver 2 gigabits per second at a single computer coming from all over the world. How about we dial it up to 20? We start taking down telco infrastructure, countries. You see it all the time. All the time out there. I mean, it's mayhem. So anyway, we put out a good post on Copyblogger this last week called WordPress Security. Go check that out. Jared Morris wrote it, and it was good stuff. A lot of comments, a lot of extra add-on in the comments section. Okay, so let me give you our lay of the land of security and insecurity. Who's heard of Cloudflare? Okay, nice company. They're a startup out of San Francisco. I've actually gotten the liberty of meeting with their founders. Really, really smart people. They've got a free offering. It makes decent sense to put them in front of your site. They take care of your DNS as well. They're really, really smart technologists. So they have got proactive blocking, not only of bad things coming to your site, but when somebody bad comes to my site first and they flag it, they'll block them before they get to yours as well. I like them. Security. Who's heard of them? Dre Armada, if you ever get a chance, meet him at a WordPress meetup, follow him on Twitter. Really, really sincere, down-to-earth WordPress people, been in the community forever. And they're super, just wickedly smart when it comes to security. So they've got some proactive stuff, and we've got some proactive stuff that helps to block and deter brute force attacks, all kinds of things. Malware detection. Who uses security to detect malware? Within 4 hours, you'll know it. They'll send you an email, and they'll clean it for free. So it's one thing to block it, it's the second thing to detect it, which that's where we're out of the game. We contract all that through security, so if you sign up with hosting with us, same with the 4 major competitors that I mentioned, they all do this. They sign up with security, they detect it, it's all free. It's just built into the hosting plan. So that's part of why things are more expensive. Malware cleanup, same thing. Security's in that business, they're great at it. All the backdoors, they're updating their fingerprint databases literally hourly. Secure configurations and brute force blocks. Not a whole lot of people out there playing that space. So I think we're the only hosting company that really truly has brute force blocking from WordPress all the way down through to FTP and all of those different pieces. DDoS protection. The only one that really provides it at what you can afford is Cloudflare. If you get into that situation, and I would question you, what are you doing on the internet that you've got somebody DDoSing you, because you're generally making people mad, and when you make the wrong people mad, they come after you. And we see it. And, they just don't go, what's your name? Ken?
Ken.
They just don't say, there's Ken, let him in order, let's go DDoS this Ken. It's a federal crime. You go to jail if they catch you, right? Ken, you'd have to screw somebody over for at least 10,000 bucks. Then they'd say, you know what, I'm gonna do this, right? But $200 a month, Cloudflare will take care of that for you. It's huge, and they can literally take attacks up to 30 gigabits per second. Yeah, they are impressive in what they do. All right, let's keep talking here. So, layperson's overview of hosting. I'm going to go a little bit faster than this because I don't want to dwell on it, because I think Rob did a good job of kind of covering what the landscape is. But if you look at WordPress hosting, Apache, PHP, your WordPress data, and your OS. It literally is, you've got a web server that takes the call, says, hey, somebody wants to talk to me. and I've either got what they want, which is some images and some pages, or I need to talk to WordPress, which means I got to talk to PHP, run through a few scripts and my theme files and my plugin files, which are going to call down to the database, and they're going to get the content and the comments and the configurations out of WP options, put it all together, and put it back up on a page and send it out the door. That's how it works. It's real simple. How many databases does WordPress have on default install? How many?
7?
No.
That's tables, not
No tables. How many tables? There are 11. 11 tables, that's it. And it's really simple the way that it's laid out. Data gets put into those, and this is the way that it all works. It's worked that way since the beginning, which is pretty cool. Now, there are different flavors of hosting, as Rob alluded to. Some are these shared servers. And you see how I kind of ran out of space for all the WordPress installs, but you put a bunch of front ends, meaning the Apache PHP part, put a bunch of that on one server, then you got a server that you tweak up for databases, and you put that on the back end. So you put 5,000 on one and 5,000 databases on the other, and you hope that they play nicely together. They can have some issues and some challenges. In many cases, if one gets hacked, all 5,000 get hacked. There's all kinds of mayhem that can take place there. So I would, like I said, go to .com, right, for your, how much you pay a year, Rob? 13 bucks plus a little storage?
Yeah.
That's cheaper than $5 a month, and $5 a month will put you in this space, right? And if you are truly making money on your sites where you can justify the other, then you can go up to the $15 and $30 a month plans that the dedicated hosts have. Let's talk about the next flavor. Clouds. Ooh, there's that word. The cloud will solve everything, right? It's fairy dust. Sprinkle that cloud fairy dust. I mean, Microsoft's doing it, Amazon's doing it, everybody's doing the cloud. I'll just throw it on the cloud, right? Throw the cloud at it. It's got security, scalability. I mean, it's like, bring the internet to an end. We don't need it anymore. We've got the cloud. Not true. So what you have is a bunch of fanciness, and they've got all these fanciness of all these calls get brought in, and they measure state, and they say, I'm going to put this call to that one, and that's call to that one, and then the middle processors do their things, and they've got these fancy databases in the back end that they all replicate to each other. And if you do it well, which is just the way WordPress.com works, it works really, really well. If you were doing this, you know why WordPress.com works so well? All they do is WordPress like this. Make sense? They know exactly across those 5 million tables, of which take 5 million and divide by 11, because that's how many installs of the tables you have. It's not that big a deal. Now, if you run Joomla, Drupal, custom-made websites, custom PHP, HTML sites, and a bunch of other junk on this, and all of their databases, you see how we're kind of combining Indian food, Chinese food, Italian food, and Americana all in one soup dish? Heartburn. That's what you get. The cloud is not the answer to everything. VPSs. Who uses a VPS? You do? VPS is good stuff. VPSs used to be, it worked, but it was slow, right? Complete pig. Today, there's like a 3% overhead to run a VPS. This is what we use at Synthesis. VPS technology. And the beauty of it is you can, who's ever used a VPS on their laptop? So where you can like make a copy of an operating system and copy it to your hard drive and use it on another computer. I mean, they're so flexible. It's really, really awesome software. Now, the problem with the majority of VPSs that are out there, this VPS contains Linux. Who here knows how to update and recompile the core of like their Linux kernel and all that good stuff? Not in that business, right? I'm the one who raises his hand. If you own a VPS, you are now a Linux administrator. And it can get a little complicated. It can get way complicated. So that's just a little caveat there. What happened there? Ah, that was supposed to be hidden. Dedicated hardware, that's the best, right? Back to that Ferrari. Rob, what happens on that Ferrari if you, does your Prius have gears?
Nope.
You just press the pedal and it
Press
goes.
the button and press the pedal.
And it goes. Ferrari's got gears, right? It's got 6 of them. And you could literally put it in 6th gear and let the clutch out. You know what happens? It stalls. So I don't care how dedicated your hardware is, how many cores you have, how many memory, blah, blah, blah. If you've got the wrong configuration or don't know how to drive it, you're dead. And that was a problem with StudioPress.com. We had this killer server. It just had the wrong configuration. Because it's kind of complicated to get these things configured. So that's why a tweet would bring it down. CDNs, I'm not going to go into depth about this, but basically what a CDN does, it says if you've got specific content, like JPEG files, your podcast files, maybe even some CSS files, we in a smart way are going to kind of push those out to all these places on the face of the earth. So when someone from Brazil goes www.yoursite.com, it's going to say, this person's coming from Brazil. before I send them all the way back to the United States to get that file, I'm just going to give them that file locally from Brazil. And they work really well. Once again, they can help, but it's not just a fairy dust that you can throw at it. You need to know what you're doing and configure that up appropriately. Okay, checklist. Here's what I would recommend to anybody. First of all, let's talk about .com. I would say, and this is my philosophy. In fact, I told it to one of the kids on the soccer field today. He was deciding whether he wanted to take his goalie gloves off. I said, you know what? When you come to me with blisters on your hands from the damage that you were getting from that ball, right? Or when that ball slides through your hands 2 or 3 times and we know there's a problem, let's solve the problem. But until then, let's stay simple. Nothing wrong with catching the ball with your hands. Same thing with .com. Once your traffic gets so intense that you say, man, if I had a couple ads up here, I could, instead of paying $13 a year, maybe I could make a couple thousand a year. Or if I were converting all of these people that want to talk to me and capturing their email addresses and start doing some email marketing and some other stuff, I could make some money off this, right? That's where you need to make that decision. So I'm going to argue, make that ROI decision on .com, and when you're ready to do that, here's the things you need to do when you look for a host. First of all, do they respond to your support request in a timely manner? Okay, call them on the phone, email, whatever they provide. Are they geographically right for you? I'm sure there's some great hosts in Australia. They don't want to talk to me at 12 o'clock in the afternoon my time, right? Or 12 in the night their time, vice versa. So there might be some differences there. Does your current user need a line? How's your end user experience on it? You see more people complaining, man, your website's slow. Well, that's generally a bad sign. If your users are complaining, it's not good. Have they been having consistent hacking problems? Are they in the news? Not a good place to be. How WordPress savvy are they? Are they committed to WordPress? Have you guys seen the GoDaddy P3 compiler? Or I'm sorry, P3 profiler? Mm-hmm. Go download it. It's a plugin. GoDaddy wrote that, which shows, they're writing stuff for core, and they're writing tools to help people make better sites. I was pretty impressed by it. Met the guy who wrote it, but go download it and it'll tell you on your site what's working and what's not. Pretty well written stuff. CDNs, does the size of the media outweigh the reach? Meaning, can you really justify a CDN? Do you know we do not run a CDN on StudioPress.com, but we do on Copyblogger? Right? There's a reason for that. So if we can get away with StudioPress.com without a CDN, you can probably get away with your site without one, but it depends on what your needs are. All right, a couple more things. How do we get the business? So when I came to speak here originally, we had a small local company, did a little help at the SBDC, we had some corporate clients, and at night we were taking our money and investing it into a sports blog that drove this sick traffic, and of course broke all the hosting. People hacked it, all kinds of stuff, and so it was about 4 years ago that we rolled up our sleeves and came up with a hosting stack based on what we use today that worked, right? So when I came to talk to you, we had the majority of the bloggers in the Yardbarker network, which is Fox Sports, so some really big sports blogs, and that was the life we were living. So across town, and we've actually got this story up on the website, you got Brian Clark, who was one of the original partners in Themes with Chris Pearson. They had done some business reorganization, and he and Brian Gardner got together, and a few others got together, and Copyblogger Media was formed. They had the same kinds of problems. So basically, if you looked at our needs for hosting at Copyblogger or even on our sports blogs, our brand depended on it. That's all we have. We don't do TV commercials. We don't have radio commercials. We have a website. People look at you and say, what? You've got a website? In fact, one of my business partners, his dad's a scout for the 49ers, and he goes, so you guys make money by people coming to your website. I'm not sure I understand that. And I looked at him and said, and you get paid to watch college football every Saturday. I'm not sure I understand that. It's the business model. The second thing is our payroll is dependent on it. That site goes down, we've got employees at risk. Do you know there's doctor's offices here in the Dallas area, small doctor's offices with 5 employees whose payroll is dependent on their website? It's a scary thought, but that's the way the world. Do you go to the Yellow Pages anymore to look up who's the robotic surgeon? You go Google what robotic surgery is, and then who's local that does it, and who's affiliated with your healthcare plan, and Baylor Hospital or Presbyterian. When you get to that website, if it says 404, 500 error, go away, we've been hacked, are you signing up with that surgeon? No. Surgeon doesn't get paid, employees don't get paid, practice starts to go down the tube. It's that important. So we looked at it from that perspective. We also provide all of our customer support online. So all the forums on Studio Press and our various support channels. If the support is down, customers are asking for their money back because that's why they paid for the open source product in the first place, for support. So that was our needs. The ugly facts, we couldn't find a provider who understood that. They wanted to talk hard drive speeds with us. And we were like, we don't care about hard drive speeds. We need sites up and performing well. One tweet from Copyblogger regularly took out StudioPress.com. And we literally knew that we needed much more than just the basics, so we couldn't host this on WordPress.com. We weren't big enough for WordPress VIP either, right? So we kind of had to figure it out ourselves. So the way that the story goes is on our side of town, we had this nutty sports blog that was getting all kinds of crazy traffic spikes. There was like 210,000 visitor a day. That's just a part of the day. I mean, it's nuts. And you could see, you know, with almost 2,000 digs on a site. Across town, Brian was doing the same thing. He's got a post that's entitled 15 grammar mistakes that make you look silly. And the thing literally has 97,000 pins, 22,000 Facebook likes, almost 5,000 tweets. And it's really a nice infographic. But that's part of our business, is putting content out and building relationships with customers online. So Brian and I sat down as we tell the story. I convinced him into putting Copyblogger and Studio Press on our stack. Once we did, he was shocked because I showed him this graphic that literally went like this. And he goes, oh man, is that my site going down? I said, no, that's your page load time going from like 6 seconds to load the page down to sub-second. And he's like, wow. But then we thought, why couldn't we do this in a commodity perspective, in a mass scale perspective? Do you know how many customers are on one of our shared servers? 10. 10. That's it. 10. So we figured out a way to design this to provide that level of what we do. It's the same stack we use for copyblogger.com. And so that's what we decided to do. Synthesis was born, and we're off doing our thing. So, whoops, I'm placing this the wrong way, and I think this about wraps me up. Oh, you know why none of these hid? Because I'm not in PowerPoint.
You're in PDF.
So let's just go to the very end. Okay, facts and the myths, and then we'll wrap it up. Fast hosting makes for better SEO. That's not necessarily true. Really, really bad hosting makes for bad SEO. When your pay-per-click ads go there and at 500s or 404s or it doesn't load, that can hurt you. But this whole thing of if you go from 1.2 second load time to 900 millisecond load time, you're going to be the #1 hit for whatever you're trying to be, that's a farce. Clouds and CDNs are fairy dust that fix everything. Not necessarily true. Your hosting company backs up your data. I mean, that's a gamble. Do they? And how do they do it? Right? And how hard is it for you to get it back? You have to get hosting, email, and domains from the same provider. It's actually a big mistake. Those are 3 separate conversations. If your website goes down and your email goes down, now you're really up a creek. Right? I mean, there's some great providers for each of those that are out there. Facts, most shared hosts have thousands of users on a box, and hackers get in via hosting as well as they get in with themes and plugins. When they get in, back down there, oh, it's a long story. It is a long story. We brought over Chris Brogan 3 weeks ago. With ChrisBrogan.com, he got hacked. He had his site down for a week. That's what he does. He's a professional speaker and consultant. Without that, I mean, it was terrible. But anyway, we got him over and got him in good graces. So, that's all I got. Thank you. And then I guess, do we have time for some Q&A? Or we? Yes.
The WordPress.org hosting page and start saying more what you are saying, because right now you go there, it's like the shared host providers that they recommend that Bluehost and some others.
Yeah, that's an interesting one.
Repeat the question.
What? Okay, so I'm sorry. So the question is if you go to WordPress.org, they've got a recommended hosting page that has a bunch of shared providers on it. Why is that, and why do they do that? The politically correct response to say is that the community is made of a variety of individuals, and they have to put out who they recommend and who they've worked with and who contributes to core, because Bluehost and each of those actually have some devs that contribute to core that makes sense for the community, okay? Including, WP Engine is actually, I believe, up and on that page. Now, the answer I would prefer to not have tweeted is there's some politics there, without a doubt. There's a few more things that go into that. So I would look at that as one source, and then go out to a variety of other sources. The beauty about the internet is you can literally get any and everybody's opinion. Get yourself educated, and if you as a site owner want to say, I don't know, that's above my pay grade, you own the site, and if you're responsible for payroll, and that site being up means that payroll, there's a dependency there, educate yourself just like you would to buy a car. And if you can get away with, like I drive a 14-year-old car, right? I'm on the hook for everything with that car. Where you, that battery's not working right, just drive right in the dealership. Do you have to hand them the keys or do you hand them your shorts? The shorts.
I don't even take them out of it.
Under warranty, fix that problem for me. And so those actually exist in the hosting world. But good question.
Actually, can I quickly add to this?
Yeah.
Okay, just to give you an example, it's interesting you mentioned that about the Viagra ads and the hack. Okay, I'm working a case right now. This is a case I can't really mention names, but I'm working a case where this is basically what someone did. They have JavaScript injections in church websites and college websites and all this stuff, and they basically stick this database in there that inserts links to all these what I call sleeper sites, right? And these sleeper sites are the sites that he's talking about, where what they'll do is they'll find, and there are two, and it's not Bluehost, but think of other companies like that, okay? There are two hosting companies that when I looked at the 50 domains that this one guy, or the 50 websites that this guy hacked, half of them were with one, just about half of them were with one host, and half of them were with another, and they were these overpopulated shared hosting servers. And when I saw, and the other interesting thing is that because like he said, they're just trying to drive all this traffic to their site, because all these sleeper sites, it looked like an e-commerce page, but every product just linked to the real e-commerce page right through. And the crazy thing was that it was, and they specifically did it on purpose, where they only hacked one IP address at a time, because they knew if they had one suspect, it's like imagine a massive apartment building and you have one criminal in one room. You know what I mean? You don't know where to look first. And that's what I kind of looked at. That's what, like I said.
And I'll even add on to that. It was about 15 years ago now, I did a project with the Secret Service and the FBI where we took down a company actually in Fort Worth of all places that was the largest child porn sting in US history. Ugly, ugly case. Do you know how that stuff goes down? When you go to a page and click buy, right? You think, well, I'm buying credit card processes and whatever sickery I've just signed up for is coming from that server. That's not how it works. You got a website and you've got a website. You both got sleeper code on them, right? Well, they're processing the credit card through your site, which you don't know about, and all the goods, the sick stuff, it's sitting on your site in a directory that you don't know about, right?
The hosting company has no idea
Now
because there's so many people hosted on that server, they don't even know where to look.
So you not only participate in a crime, but when the feds come in, this is the way the feds work, and this actually shocked me when we did this case. They come in and pay you a little visit. They've got a 180-day clock on these criminal cases, and they don't make an arrest until they are ready for that clock to begin. So they'll come in and just take all of the servers, right? Because they got a little work to do on them. Bye-bye. And that means your site, your site, your site, and your site went with it, and you had nothing to do with this, right? Oh, and by the way, you got a guy in a suit knocking on your door, asking about all those images on your drive. It's that bad. It really is. It was an eye-opener for me, trust me. So anyway, other questions?
I'm going to ask Rob, I had a feeling Derek's going to handle it. The $13 a year you pay to have your URL pointed to your How is that different from forwarding with masking from your registrar in the first place?
Well, it's he could probably just explain domain mapping. Again, I'm not a technical person, but it basically makes it the true domain for that site rather than just forwarding.
Yeah, so masking basically puts this mask over, but it doesn't do the rewrite, so all of your pages are now mydomain.com, right? So the search engine, first of all, is going to get to it and say, okay, I don't even understand that, and I can tell it's masked, and so I'm just going to blow this whole thing off. To where what WordPress.com does on the back end is a true rewrite scenario, to where they say, even though you signed up for rob.wordpress.com, you've bought, IPCybercrime or IPcrime.com, we're going to work all of that in a way that is, it's just the way websites work.
So the pages are like
it becomes first class.
Yeah.
Yeah, it becomes a first class, it's kind of like bringing your own pillow on your coach. You can do it, but you're still gonna, your neck's gonna hurt at the end of the flight. So, and the way that I've actually used the forwarding like GoDaddy, who does a really good job with it for certain things. But man, you can have a good day or a bad day with that service with them.
So-
Yeah, and if it's your main domain and you want it to be like, just like Holmes PI slash, you know, the blog post name, it has to be mapped to there.
Okay.
If you don't, it's holmespi.wordpress.com / and that. But you can always have the domain just forward to the main page. But again, it's just a, you know, it's a pain, especially if you want to look professional.
For 13 bucks,
Yeah,
just
I'm
do
just
it.
curious.
yeah,
No, it's a great
The
question.
blogger,
price
too.
protected,
You can ask.
right.
I may have this wrong, but if you mask it, I mean, and you're looking to be backlinks on your sites, I mean, you're gonna bring like a backlinks to your mask it. I mean,
Yeah, no, it can get, it doesn't, in many cases, it won't treat you well in search. So, who's got other questions? Yeah?
So, just an opinion, you both of you can answer this. Which shared hosting companies would you not use? Just an opinion.
You know what, I have to tell you, because of the stuff I do, and he does a lot of this stuff too, I can tell you, after this raid that I did, and this was a company that I would have recommended. I'm really, and also with this current case I'm working, it's another company I would have recommended. I saw him in June at a conference. We were both speakers at this conference, and I said, you know what, I got to get hooked up on your thing. And that was when I did. And I don't know. I mean, I literally, because of my experiences these last couple of years, I just needed someone that just specialized in WordPress. And the price, honestly, and I'm a small businessman, you know, I was paying like $10 a month to GoDaddy. I think I'm paying like $27 a month for this. And it's like, it's everything. Plus, I get Derick. I mean, it's, you know, it's not like, no, but you know what I mean? It's like, well, it's him or like two guys down from him. You know, it's not like, you know, when you call like these companies, it's sales and support.
Yeah.
And you talk to them, and then they still want to ask you to renew all these things. You know what I mean? It's a whole separate type of service for really only $20-something a month.
It is WordPress support,
Yeah.
right? So if you look at the major four, all of us do it. We provide WordPress support, meaning if plugins not behaving, they come back with data. We've got all kinds of logging data that we can come back and say, I mean, somebody in this room actually had one of their sites go down a few mornings ago, and literally immediately, it was within minutes, just be able to pinpoint what plugin did it, disable it. We've actually got command line access to all WordPress sites. So anything you can do in the back end, we can do at the command line. Create yourself a username and get in and fix it, and then tell you, hey, boom, disable this plugin and off you go. Now, back to what your question was. Your question is if you hadn't been on the shared host route, which would you do? I struggle with this every day, because we'll have people come to us that just can't afford more than $7-8 a month, and that's just the way it is, right? And I got to be honest with you, I have looked and looked and looked. I've got relatives. I've got a sister who's a politician, has a small website that gets 300 visitors a year, that kind of stuff. I don't have a good answer for it. I wish that I did. So I would once again say, go back to .com. That's a great place to be. And if not, look at the price ranges. I think Pagely starts at like $15 a month, and then they work their way up in terms of what you get, what you need, etc. So
I think the dilemma that probably most people in this room have is, you start off with a hobby, then you want to take it to a different level. So you're trying to do a lot of customizations of the themes. You want to start putting, you actually want a commercial type of.
Yep.
And then you determine your break-even point, and I mean, at the end of the day, it's a small pittance, but nonetheless, when you're in startup mode, you're.
No, you need to be. So being an entrepreneur, here's what I would do. Okay, it is easy to migrate a site. It's easy for us. We do it all day, right? But it's an easy thing to do. If I were an entrepreneur on a complete shoestring budget, or one to beat on that shoestring budget, go pick one of those shared hosts, right? Somebody who answers the phone, hopefully in a decent amount of time, etc. Put a free Cloudflare account in front of it so that you get some protection. Sign up with security. Okay? They're going to cost you, what do they get? Either $97 or $180 a year, or something that's doable. But between their scanning and the fact that they will get your site cleaned up if you have a problem, between what Cloudflare can do on the front end, and between the fact that the shared host should at least keep you alive and answer the phone, get it to the point where you're making some money, get it to the point to where you need to get serious about it, and then say, okay, it's time to make the move. And yeah. Now, the next question is, if you see your dev bill starting to add up because you're asking, it's like me and my accountant. I always get this bill because I ask all these questions, right? Well, you get billed for every piece of it. It's like, wow, I just asked what time of day it was, and it's got billed $50. In our model, or any of our competitors' models, that WordPress support, we spend probably 75% of our support time answering SEO questions. sitemaps and this and that, and how do we do this, how do we do that? And we're fine with it. That's what we're geared up to do. We've tried to engineer around the, hey, my site's broken, you guys are jerks. I mean, we don't have those issues. So, but that would be my off-the-cuff advice. I really can't list the ones who are bad. Man, they're bad.
But I can tell you just simply, and again, I'm a small businessman. I just have experience with the things I do. But before I went with him, I was with GoDaddy for like 6 years, and they were fine. I never had that much problem. And it was $7-8 a month or $10 a month or whatever. And then I switched over, and and it's really what happened when I moved over to that was just peace of mind. It was peace of mind, and actually my speed doubled. It went from like 4 seconds to 2 seconds, and the support. But it's really, I think a lot of times you're paying a little bit more for peace of mind. But really, I mean, if your budget's like $10 a month, going with any of the reputable companies is going to be the same amount of risk.
That's why I asked that the first question. WordPress.org is recommending, say, Bluehost. I mean, when I got started, I had, Bluehost, $84 a year, unlimited sites. I had all my, whole portfolio in there. All my clients I was recommending Bluehost.
Yep.
Yeah, so
the world's changed.
Yeah, you don't know. I think the majority of people I meet, they don't understand why. And then when you start speaking to them and tell them, here's the risk. I mean, how do you justify going from $4.99 or $5.99 a month to $27 and putting it in a layman term? I think that's what's important.
Yeah, it is hard, and sometimes it takes that catalyst of the site getting hacked, something getting screwed up, and we hate to, we rescue sites on a daily basis, and I hate to see people in this situation. But sometimes, because hosting is seen as a commodity, right? I mean, even Brian, he and I were in LA a couple of weeks ago, and I said, you realize that 260 times an hour, somebody tries to guess the password at copyblogger.com. And he just goes, I did not need to know that. But he goes, I trust you've got that under control. I was like, we do. We do.
Well, it's like the CIA. You don't know how many times there's like a terrorist that drives by your house, and I don't care. As long as the CIA is picking them off as I'm doing my thing.
Welcome back. I hope you enjoyed both speakers on this week's session. Now make sure and come back next month for another video session from the Dallas Wordpress Meetup group. Now if you like what Conference Showcase is doing, I would ask you to consider dilldomains.com the next time you buy a domain name or website hosting. Dilldomains.com is my GoDaddy reseller account. That's it, plain and simple. It's my GoDaddy reseller account. So if you like GoDaddy or you use GoDaddy, please consider using Dilldomains to buy your GoDaddy stuff. Well, that's all for today. So until next episode, this is your host, Gary Leland, saying goodbye and thanks for watching.